Welcome to the show, another episode of the Veterans Veteran Podcast. I'm your host, Drew Jones. One of the reasons I started this podcast was because I wanted to have conversations about what happens when the uniform comes off. We spend a lot of time talking about service, careers, accomplishments, deployments, cases, arrests, and all the things people can see from the outside, but we don't talk nearly enough about what years of living in that environment can do to the person underneath the uniform. Today, we're going to talk about all of that. My guest is Orion, Bad Karma Mata. Orion is a U.S. Army military police veteran and has spent more than 3 decades in law enforcement. During his 31-year career, he has served as a patrolman, detective, SRT operator, police sniper, federal task force officer, working complex organized crime cases. This is a man who spent a huge portion of his life operating in high-stress environments where being calm under pressure wasn't optional, it was part of the job. But eventually, years of carrying that stress started taking a toll on his health, his relationships, and his life. Instead of allowing that to be the end of his story, Orion eventually turned the same discipline he'd used professionally toward rebuilding himself. He addressed the trauma. He worked on regulating his nervous system. He took control of his physical health and lost more than 90 pounds. And today, he's taken everything he's learned and turned it into another mission. He's the founder of Bad Karma Coaching, where he works with veterans, first responders, and high-performance leaders on health, accountability, and rebuilding the relationships that can sometimes become casualties of the career we choose. He's also an author with his thriller, Murderous Daydreams. Orion, my brother, welcome to the Veterans Veteran Podcast.
Man, thank you so much for having me. And it was a huge opportunity to be out here and trying to reach some fellow veterans and first responders on the struggles that we face.
Yep. Shout out if anybody watching this. He drove here today. We're live in Hernando, Mississippi. He drove from Kansas City, Missouri. So as of now, he holds the record for the farthest ever driven to be here. No,
it was a good time. We actually took the opportunity to just me and my daughter came down and just spend some good father-daughter time together, and it was much needed. So.
Oh yeah, always a good time when the kids are involved. Well, before we get too deep into the career and the tactical world and the mental health side and everything you're doing now, let's kind of go back to what was all like that before that. What, way back in the day, what made you, before the Army and before law enforcement, what did your background look like growing up, and what kind of made you make that decision for your career?
So I'm kind of unique because I had decided I wanted to be a cop at like 7 years old. We had a family friend that was a police officer, and I was just like, that's what I want to do, and never once veered off of that, which kind of helped me in my high school time. You know what I mean? You know, I still did some stupid shit, but
nothing too crazy.
Nothing too crazy to disqualify me from being a cop. You know what I mean? And we'll get into some of that here in a little bit. But yeah, I just had that drive and held on to that dream ever since I was 7 years old, which is kind of why I joined the Army, to get a jump start on that.
All right. Well, that was going to be my next question. What was your deciding factor to join the military, and how old were you?
I was 17. I actually celebrated my 18th birthday in basic training.
Oh, wow.
So as soon as I graduated high school, I think I had right around a month and a half before I shipped out.
Where'd you go to training at?
I was down at Fort McClellan, Alabama.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yep.
Man, that's crazy. I actually went there for OCS. They actually have OCS there now.
Oh, really?
Like if you do the accelerated program or the state program, like I went there for phase 1 and then came back for phase 3. But they also, if you do accelerate, you just stay there the whole time now.
Oh, really?
So I've actually been there.
Yeah, that's not a good place to be. So I've had 3 bouts of skin cancer. And I've lost a lot of brothers and sisters to cancer over the years. And
oh, wow.
That's the one thing we all got in common is
Fort
McClellan, Alabama.
I'm going to have to inform some people about that for my OCS
for real.
fellows.
Yeah, make sure they stay up on it because, the chemical school was there and apparently some of that shit leaked down into the water table. And while you were down there, I don't know if you ever ran Big Tit.
I don't remember them saying that.
So it's literally like a mountain that's like this, and it's got like looks like a big nipple on it. So we just called it Big Tit. But, you'll be running through Fort McClellan and everything will be green. And then there's like, everything's dead.
Oh, God.
Like just whole places of that thing. There's no vegetation, no nothing. And, just thinking about drinking out of those Lister bags. And, I grew up in Michigan. So, mosquitoes are, super common up there. And I'd get down there and man, I'd have welts on me the size of a $50, and I never welt up like that from any mosquitoes up in Michigan. So I'm sure that's where a lot of us got some carcinogens down there.
Yeah. What I would ask why I chose military police, but it sounds like that was obviously your goal the whole time, so it was an easy decision.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. That was exactly what I wanted to do. Like I said, from the time I was 7 years old. So that's
it was an easy decision.
That was a natural track for me. Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize it when I first got in the Mississippi Army National Guard and I joined enlisted as a 19 Delta Cav Scout. I still didn't know. I mean, I knew obviously I was already a policeman at the time, so I always thought MPs would be cool at some point. So when I did go to OCS and branched MPs, you don't realize all the stuff that MPs actually do until you're in the MPs.
Oh, no.
It's like just a multi-tool of the Army.
Yeah.
I mean, especially National Guard wise. I mean, they're the very first ones to go any kind of natural disaster, state emergency. They go up to the DC for the inauguration every 4 years, like riot control. They get put on standby. Like, you don't just put the Guard on standby. Like, the ones that are immediately put on standby are the MPs.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that they do some really cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And when an MP unit rolls out outside the wire, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, they're on their own.
Yeah.
So
they do a lot of convoy escorts, a lot of stuff like that. A lot of people don't, oh, you're MP, what are you going to do? Deploy and like patrol the base. I mean, that is an aspect of it, but there's also the MPs that are, like I said, are out there on the convoys and doing the security and on whether it's a combat zone or not. People don't realize that.
Yeah. So when I enlisted, well, I'm sure they were bullshitting me because they had to fill slots and I was 17 years old and didn't know. But so I originally went in for a 95 Bravo, which it's a 31 series or 34 series now. But they actually were like, well, we don't have any slots open there, but we have slots open in 95 Charlies, which is corrections. So that's how I ended up in Kansas City. I was at Fort Leavenworth for 8.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, working at so I was 18 years old, working in a maximum security prison. So that was, I think that's where my hypervigilance and stuff started really, really young because, working inside the walls like that and, like people just being nice to you, you're like, well, what the fuck do you want from me?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? What are you trying to get over? And so it was really weird to, you build those walls up pretty quick. You know?
I started my law enforcement career out working in the jail.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's very strange dynamic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because some guys in there, you're talking to them and we're talking just like you and I are, you know what I mean? And, they're literally just trying to get their hooks in you and get a little bit of information and be like, oh, hey, you think I can get an extra pillow? You think I can get this? You think I can get that? And then they're like, well, remember when you gave me that extra pillow? I need you to do this, you know? And I've seen a lot of the people I work with get jammed up and shit like that,
Well, like I've always said, even from the outside looking in, but especially once I was actually inside, I was like, how does stuff get into prisons and jails? The people that
just
work
like
there.
that.
The people that work there.
Yeah, I worked physical security for a while there. So we were in charge of all the keys for the base. We'd run vulnerability tests, get people try to, sneak people in that weren't supposed to be in. We try to sneak, people out that weren't obviously supposed to get out.
Dang.
And, we would run those tests all the time and worked with our military police investigations to conduct like guard searches and stuff like that, trying to get stuff coming in. Usually there was a target. You know what I mean? We think so-and-so's bringing shit in, but it's kind of like the random piss test. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, we need Johnny to take a piss test, but we're going to have 25 other people take piss tests too. So.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I always wondered that in the Army. I was like, is this truly, even when I became an officer, I still didn't really find out, but I was always like, is this truly random? I was like, is this truly random?
No, it's not random.
Yeah, I was like, how do you just randomly pick 25% of the company to take a drug test? Like,
right.
Or once or twice a year, especially with the MPs, we would do a 100% drug test. And I don't even know if do they actually all get tested? Like when they send them off, do they actually 100% get tested? I'm like, how do we all take these drug tests and never hear anything back?
Yeah, I'm sure they do, but I'm sure there's, the random drug tests are like, hey, we need so-and-so to take a drug test, but we can't just target him. So We're gonna
I used to laugh
because a bunch of people.
I somehow ended up taking pretty much every drug test they ever had. And I was like, dude, are y'all targeting me, or am I just somebody y'all know that's going to be a for sure pass? I was like, I don't mind taking them. How is it? I'm always here for every random drug test.
Yeah, I never mind taking them. There was one time though. So when we worked at the prison, like your guard shift would start, but then we had they called them escorts. So like they would set up chow and stuff like that. And then we were also responsible for taking inmates outside the walls for appointments and things like that. And then being on SRT, a lot of times we would get tasked with that, doing those escorts outside the walls. And man, I got up, I was ready. You know what I mean? Took my shower, had my BDUs on, I was ready to go. They're like, hey, you need to take a drug test. I'm like, I fucking just took care of all that shit, man. I was like, and I'm sitting there and I'm like pounding Gatorades and water and stuff. And they're like, you ready to go yet? I'm like, no, I'm not ready to go yet. Like they're busting my chops about it. And finally, when I was finally able to piss, I was like, man, I pissed all over the cup. I had piss dripping off my hand. I handed it to him. I was like, here you go. And it's just dripping piss. And I'm like, that was the only time I really had the ass about it, because I was like, you guys just messed up my whole day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What lessons would you say from the military followed you into law enforcement, or possibly just the whole rest of your life?
There's a lot, man. Just the basic discipline of, you got a job to do. This is your mission. These are your parameters. You know what I mean? Like I look at everything I do like that. And, I'm like, in my head, I'm building an ops plan. I'm like, man, I got to build a deck. What am I doing? Like, what's my budget? What's my, what permits what permits can I escape from, having to go deal with the city and all that bureaucracy shit.
Oh, Lord.
But really everything that I do is based on that discipline that I got from the military. That's
something I've always noticed, and especially instilled in me, and I think a lot of veterans can relate. It's like the routine. You get so used to a routine, and you're like, I'm gonna do this in the morning, I'm gonna do that. Like you already have your day planned out before the day gets there. And then like when it comes to planning, like you said, you're like, oh, I'm gonna build a deck. So like you're already thinking 2-3 steps ahead. Like, all right, well, I need the wood, I need the screws, like I need somebody to help. Like this is probably the best time of do it because of the heat or whatever time of year it is. Like, and some people, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to not think like that, because you probably wouldn't stress as much. Like everyone knows that one guy that they just go with the flow. I'm like, man, I'm a planner. Like if you give me an idea, I'm already like 2-3 steps ahead. Like,
well, I understand that, but I also think like, how much stress would it be to not have a plan?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's how we think, because we're so planned and detail and mission task oriented.
You're just fucking all willy nilly and shit, and you're just like, I need this too. You know what I mean? Where if you would have thought about that shit ahead of time, you know what I mean? Like everything kind of be lined out. I
don't know. Like I said, we all know that at least one person you can think of that's just totally just go with the flow. It's like they're never stressed. Like something comes up, they're like, we'll handle it. I'm like, our brains are like, all right, well, we need to do this. We need to do this. We need to do this. Has to happen. This has to happen.
Yeah. And for me, that's how I alleviate stress. You know what I mean? And I know like a lot of times, like we'd be in some serious shit at work, especially when I was out on the task force, and I'd be cracking jokes and shit. And I'm just like, I'm of the opinion like, hey, if no one's dying, no one's bleeding out, it's all good.
Yeah.
Like it's a good day. We can fix paperwork. We can handle anything else. You know what I mean? Make the notifications and stuff. And
I was always known to crack some jokes to try to lighten the mood.
Oh yeah,
everyone's all you're like a big high intense situation just went down. Y'all go back to the department or the station, whatever, to make your report, and everyone's still stressed out and all sitting there wide eyed. And I'd come in and like crack a joke or something. I'd be like, man, we're all, like you said, we're all alive. Like, man, we're good. Now we just got to do the paperwork.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's exactly how I am. I'm just like, hey, we're all here. That's how I was with my accident, and we were talking about my motorcycle accident on the way over here. I'm like, man, I'm pretty solid. I'm blessed.
I'm still here.
Yeah. So it could have been way worse.
When it was come time to get out of the military, what was it like? What was the transition like? How long when you got out of the military until you got into law enforcement? Like, was there what was that transition like?
So when I decided to get out of the military, I planned on staying. to be honest. And I was actually at work when 9/11 happened.
Oh, wow.
I watched, like at first, the first plane hit the towers and nobody knew what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're all standing there and we're like, oh, some fucking dumbass was out
how in the world did this happen?
Flew his Cessna into the fucking building or whatever. And when we watched that second plane hit,
you knew it was for real.
Well, I looked at my guys and I was like, we're going to war, boys.
It's coming.
Like bottom line, we're going to war. And, sure as shit, like so much changed immediately after that. And one of the things most people don't know is that Gitmo was originally going to be in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas.
Oh, wow.
So SRT was on, we were on standby. We were going to fly 2 teams out, and we had a rear security team. We were going to fly 2 teams out, and I think one team was going to pick up like 18 prisoners. Another team was going to pick up like 13 or 14 prisoners, and they were all going to come back to Fort Leavenworth. And thank God they didn't do that, because that had just been inviting another Beslan style attack here in the States.
No doubt.
Where they were going to take a school or something.
That's why I had a friend that was infantry at Fort Benning, active duty, and he said 9/11 when it hit, like they literally immediately, all the bases are on full lockdown. They're fully up armored vehicles, full kit, everything, M4s at the gates, because they didn't know like what was happening next.
Right.
Like, are the bases about to be under attack? Or are we truly under attack? What's going on? And I was like, man, I couldn't imagine. I was in 6th grade at my grandparents' house late for school because we were watching it on the news and couldn't believe what we were watching.
Right.
And then I remember getting to school and I asked my teacher about it, and she was like, shh. She didn't want me to freak any of the other students out because I was the only one that knew about it because I was late.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll never forget that. It was so crazy.
Yeah. So after 9/11 happened, they basically froze all the SRT guys because we were going to be response force for post if something happened. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We were the out in Fort Leavenworth, we were the best equipped to handle a situation there. And I went to my battalion commander and I was like, hey, if anyone goes from this unit, I'm volunteering to go. And with us being frozen, like the first guy that moved, he went to work for a 2-star as a subject matter expert for detainee ops.
Oh, wow.
Setting up the jails or the prison encampments in country. And when they finally started moving everyone around, they wanted to send me to Korea. And I'm like, fuck you, I don't want to go to Korea. I want to go to Afghanistan.
What
I mean? Like, what are we doing? And I would have to re-enlist or extend to go over there. And I was slated to go to BNOC. And, for some of the listeners, it's the basic non-commissioned officer course, basically to become a staff sergeant. And when I declined those orders, obviously, they pulled my orders for BNOC. And then I got stuck in stop loss anyways and ended up doing another, I think, year and a half, something like that after
Korea.
After that, yeah, I was like, man, I don't want to go to work at the jail in Korea. Yeah. You know what I mean?
9/11 just happened. You're trying to, I would have thought just like you, what in the hell am I going to do in Korea while 9/11 just popped off?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. I was like, I ain't doing that shit. So I got out and applied to several law enforcement agencies in the Kansas City metro area and ended up getting on with the department that I work now. So I started out back in the jail because obviously I was more than qualified. Going from a maximum security prison to a municipal jail was
pretty easy gig.
Yeah, to say the least. I'm like, they're like, well, sometimes got like 20, 25 inmates back there. And I'm like, yeah, I just came from a facility like before we moved. So we called it the old DB and the new DB. And the old DB was like the big castle, I mean, you can pull up pictures of it and shit. And, we had 250, right around 250 inmates in the medium custody domiciles. And there was only 3 guards in there.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was pretty, it was easy to go to the municipal jail to go work. It was pretty funny.
There's some military and law enforcement culture where you're taught very early that when things go bad, you're supposed to be the person who has it all together. Do you think that mindset helped you professionally, but then maybe possibly eventually hurt you personally?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When, and I don't know if I'm kind of like an autist or something like that. But it seems to me like when all hell's breaking loose, I can think clear, you know what I mean? I'm like, hey, we need to do this, this, and this, you know what I mean? Like setting up perimeters and, just making notifications, handling this, handling that. Like that's when everything slows down for me. The problem is when you can operate on that level, being sympathetic or empathetic to quote unquote normal people problems becomes really hard because you're fucking freaking out about that. Like,
man, the way I can relate to that is insane.
Yeah. You know what I mean? You're just like, okay, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And like you, like, that's it.
Yeah. So that really does, it really does hurt those personal relationships, and it just makes you seem cold and and uncaring. Yeah. I don't even know how many times my wife has been like, you have no empathy whatsoever.
I've had actually, what's funny is when I first started hearing that I had no empathy was actually at OCS because we did peer reviews. And that was always one of my peer, because I was the class president for class 63 for Mississippi. And man, I just told them, I said, man, we have a whole month to prepare from one month's drill to the next month's drill. And if you didn't get your stuff done between that month and this month, or you showed up unprepared, or you showed up, you didn't bring all your stuff, I'm like, dude, you had a whole month, man. I work full time. I got a family. I got kids. Like, I got a million things going on. Like, I don't feel sorry for you.
Right.
People that show up, they have their excuses. Oh, well, this happened or that happened, or man, I just forgot to bring all my equipment. I'm like, how would you forget to bring your equipment? I was like, my equipment doesn't even leave my car. I was like, I just leave it in the trunk from drill to drill, unless I need to take some stuff out and do laundry.
How hard is it to be like, oh, this is my packing list.
Yeah.
I'm going to put all my shit in my ruck, in my bags, and be ready to go.
That was one of their peer reviews. You have no empathy. I was like, I don't. I was like, not in this situation. I was like, but I've heard that a few times as well in my personal life. And I'm like, like you said, there's just such bigger issues out there to really worry about.
Yeah. And, I talk about it in some of my videos and stuff. And, when you deal with life and death, and like literally life and death, whether it's your own life or, you're going out and people are dead and you see it, you know what I mean? Like, your give a shit meter really gets skewed. Yeah. It takes a lot for something to register, I
watched a video one time, and I wish to God I would have saved it because I referred to it all the time, but I can't remember who said it or where the study was done. But it was like a first responder, in a first responder's career, they may see upwards of like 100 traumatic life events. And where a regular civilian with what you would say a normal job career may only see 1 to 7 their whole lifetime.
Right.
And I was like, think about what that does to a brain, and everything. Like you said, seeing a dead body no longer freaks you out. When a normal civilian, that would be a serious issue. That would take some time to recover. And we'll get off a call, I hate to say it, and somebody get killed or something like that, and go eat. Hey, what are we about to go do for lunch?
I was literally like, what
are we gonna go do for lunch?
I was out on a dead body one time, and the guy had been there for a couple days.
Oh,
and when they start gassing, and like literally his body's popping. Like every couple seconds.
You don't forget those.
And I was going to eat before I got sent on that call, and I'm just like, man, I'm in this room, in this guy's house, just waiting for the ME to get there, and I'm like, I'm hungry as shit.
I'm sorry.
I was like, I didn't do it, but I was looking around in his kitchen. I'm like, man, can I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something? I'm fucking starving.
For all you first responders out there, I know you can relate, but for you non-first responders, we probably sound barbaric. It's just, you just get so, I don't know, I'm thinking of the word is desensitized. You just see it over and over and over again. I mean, when you call the police, it's not on your best day. We're going to see you on your worst.
Yeah.
And so when you just every day, especially depending on where you work and the call volume, and you just see bad stuff on an everyday basis, you're at work. Like you said, eventually you'll go to what somebody else would think is the worst situation they've ever seen in their life, and then we'll leave and go eat lunch. I mean,
100%. And I'm glad you said that because, I try to tell some of my younger guys because it's real easy to get jaded. And I don't know, I'm sure it's the same thing in your law enforcement career where you're dealing with like maybe 0.5% or 1% of the population of your entire community all the fucking time.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, everyone in this town's a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I got there and I realized like, man, no, they're not. Yeah. We're only dealing with, like the same 150 people all the time.
Yeah.
So it's easy to feel like that.
Yeah.
So I tell them, I'm like, you know what? Go to the park on a weekend.
You see the families and the normal people
out there doing birthdays and having fun, playing baseball, doing that shit. You know what I mean? And, you know, like you said, we get called on our worst days, so we don't get to go in your living room. You know, we're not going to your living room watching your kids open Christmas presents, you know, or sitting at Thanksgiving dinner with you. We get called Thanksgiving dinner when drunk Uncle Bob throws a fucking turkey across the room.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
that was a domestic going down.
Yeah.
And, or, you know, God forbid somebody stabs somebody or something, you know, just completely escalated and went crazy. And they may be great people, but that day, at that moment, something snapped and they just lost it.
Yeah. Well, there's a big reason. Like, I think it's Thanksgiving. It might be Thanksgiving or Christmas, but the day after Thanksgiving or Christmas, like statistically, is the highest time. One for suicide attempts, and the other one is for people to sign up for counseling.
Yeah. Yeah, the holidays can bring the best and the worst in people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Especially, you know, you've made some mistakes. You're not that close to your family anymore. You're divorced. You're not seeing your kids. Now you got to spend a holiday by yourself.
Yep.
You know, I can see how that could go very south very quickly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What? So now we're into the law enforcement portion. You spend a long time in this. What do you remember when your young self put the badge on the first time? What that felt like?
Oh, it was amazing. It was absolutely awesome. You know
Best
what I mean?
answer ever.
And yeah, I mean, like graduating basic training. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And being in there, and you know, it was kind of cool because I was the honor graduate for our platoon. You know what I mean? So we're separated from the rest of the company,
mm-hmm.
and you know, the generals coming through and shaking everyone's hand and stuff like that. So that was a huge honor. But you know, I went to the police academy, and I'd already been doing that stuff for 8.5 years. You know, as a chief defensive tactics instructor for our
probably in great shape
for our battalion. Yeah, I was in good shape, and so they made me the president of our police academy.
Heck yeah.
A class, and you know, I was able to give a speech at the end of that. But yeah, putting that badge on and actually having that on my chest for the first time was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I remember when I'm like you, I always knew I had 3 things in my whole life I ever wanted to do: law enforcement, military, and coaching. My dad was a Memphis cop for 30 years, Vietnam veteran. So I knew my whole life. I knew, like, I never questioned what I was going to do, but I never forget putting that uniform on for the first time, graduating the police academy, how proud I was, how proud my dad was, and actually being on the streets, driving around, like you said, like kind of back to what we were talking about, having a jaded opinion. I try to tell cops now, because I've seen it from both ends, because when you're in it, man, that's all you know. Next thing you know, your only friends are other cops. The only people you talk to are cops. The only people you hang out with, people at your barbecues are all cops. And what are you doing? You're talking about cop stuff.
Yep.
So I was like, I saw it from the other end when I was on my kind of a little seasoned in, and I kind of felt like I was getting ready to do something else. And I guess you could say started hanging out with normal people. I was like, then I started telling cops that, and I still did to this day. I said, man, no matter how much you love it, how great you are at your job, you're the number 1 narcotics guy, you're the number 1 DUI officer, number 1 warrant chaser, whatever. Like, don't make that your whole life.
Yeah, there was a time that I really lost myself behind the badge, especially when I was out at the task force.
Oh yeah, all the training opportunities, the overtime, you know, trying to make cases.
So much overtime
because you're trying to get ahead, and you're trying to do better, and you're trying to work hard, and next thing you know, it's all you do.
Yeah, we had one case. I think that case went on for 2.5 years. So I was in a long-term investigation group, obviously, and we had one case where I think we ran wires from December to the end of June or maybe July, and so it was literally we were up on in a wire or T3 for the people that are listening is just where we're tapping into your phone and we're listening to exactly what's going on, and I mean that's the highest standard of Fourth Amendment protections that we have, you know what I mean? So obviously it takes a pretty big threshold to get a judge to sign off on us doing that.
Especially an extended period of time when like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, we were jumping from target to target, you know, and we were doing that, and I had checks I had 200 hours overtime.
Golly. Just eating
on
it
a
up.
2 weeks check, you know what I mean? So, I mean, we were We were humping it. And being the case agent, obviously, not only are you out doing surveillance and doing all that stuff, but you're doing all this shit behind the scenes, man, and just
logging everything down, keeping track of everything. Report.
And the benefit of doing the long-term investigation stuff for me was when we finally sat down across the table from somebody, I didn't feel like they could lie to me.
Yeah, you knew everything.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, a year ago when you were over at your brother's house, somebody came by and dropped off a bag. What was in there? You know what I mean? And they're like,
yeah, and their eyes just get big.
Like, holy shit, man! Like this dude was watching me for that long. And
how can you lie?
Yeah,
which I'm sure some of them still do, but like,
they do, but
it's like they just know, oh, you got me.
Yeah, but when you get up to the Fed level, even the defense attorneys, once they get, they get a stack of discovery that's, that big, and they're looking through there, and they're like,
they're hoping and praying they find an error.
The only chance that you have to not die in prison is to talk to these guys.
What would you say? Because even I did over the course of 12 years, law enforcement, things changed considerably from when I first got hired to when I got out, and they're still changing. What is some of the biggest changes you've seen from just putting that badge on, graduating the academy, to what would you say here now times?
So I've seen good and bad changes, to be honest. Some of the worst changes were probably like right around Ferguson time frame and stuff like that, and people are just. We call it the Ferguson effect, where guys are they're afraid to engage. And I've seen too many officers get hurt because they're just literally just pussyfooting with these guys. And they're, and I'm like, hey, and I always tell my students, because I'm I teach DT, and I'm like, when you put your hands on somebody, that motherfucker needs to know that he's got.
Yeah.
And that kind of pussification after that. And then, obviously, like, not all departments are like that, but like there's a lot of DEI shit that's going on, and I don't care what industry you're in, it's going to ruin it.
Yeah.
Because when you start saying, "Oh, we need to meet all these markers," you know what I mean? Well, you're passing up good candidates
because you got to get a quota
to
for
fill
certain
a slot for a certain demographic. You know what I mean? And that's it's a poison for any industry, and I've really seen that in the police academies. Some of the recruits that come out, depending on what academy they go through, their DT program is nowhere near up to par.
Yeah.
And
Not
you get these kids in there, and you're like, all right, now strike this bag, and you're just like, my fucking grandson can hit harder than that. What are you doing? You know what I mean? I
saw that as well, man. Especially, it don't matter where you're at, but even, locally, man, it all starts right with, is your department going to back you up?
Right.
God forbid you get into a shooting, and God forbid, they're a different color than you. And it's, something like that's going to may possibly blow up in the news. So first thing, is your department going to have your back? Is your local government, whether it be the county or the city, going to have your back? Is the DA, most importantly, are they going to have your back? Yeah. Are they going to try to make an example out of you and, to get votes for the next election? I'm tough on crime, but I'm also tough on police.
Right.
And I kind of saw a little bit of that in the Starkville area. And I'll be honest, some of us were afraid. I'm like, man, if we get in a shooting, and you already know you're going to grand jury.
For sure. We actually had a target that we indicted federally, and we knew the block that he was living on, but he would bounce from different house to house, like even while we're on the case, you know what I mean? And with a prosecutor in Jackson County up there at the time, like she was fucking going after cops like crazy, and it was absolutely insane, some of the shit that she was doing. And like, we were all like, well, we're not going to get him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
like we can't say for sure that that's his house, even though he's in there. And we just don't want to get jammed up. Even the marshals were like, we're not going after him.
Yeah. We'll wait till we have everything.
And he ended up popping up, eventually, and got him in custody.
Well, man, you're a lot like myself. When you became a policeman, you didn't just want to work patrol, man. You did, patrolman, detective, SRT operator, police sniper, federal task force. What kind of, it may have been some of the military background in you or this and that, but what kind of led you, I guess you could say, to the way I thought, always trying to do better, always trying to advance?
So what led me into SRT was shortly after I got to the DB, we had a riot in one of the wings, and one of my good friends got taken hostage, and they beat the shit out of him.
Oh man.
Like for hours. I mean, they pulled him into the shower area, and on the cameras, you'd see like just a group of inmates go in there, and they'd work him over and whatever else they did. We never asked them about any of that other shit. And,
yeah.
They'd work him over. We went to see him the next day in the hospital, and like from his ear down, like this was all swollen up. Like he was almost unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Not just as him, but as a human being.
Yeah.
And, but SRT, kind of led the charge on that, deal. We had like a little, I don't even know. It wasn't a catwalk, but it was like an Overwatch thing. So they were able to introduce munitions from there. You know what I mean? Went in, the company team went in and went through tier by tier, made sure everyone was locked down, arrested some of the agitators and all that stuff. But the SRT basically went in right into our downed officer, downed guard, and extracted him. And I was like, man, that's what I want to fucking do.
Like, I want to be the guy that goes in to save the guy.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where I got on SRT at first. So I think I was there for maybe 2.5 years or so. Made it on SRT, went to SRT school. At that time, it's the MP school had moved from Fort McClellan to Leonard Wood. So we went down to Leonard Wood, did that, and then I've been shooting since I was like 3 or 4 years old, and I've always been a pretty decent shot. So that's when I started becoming a sniper too. So I ended up being our sniper team leader for, I think there was maybe 8 of us.
Oh, wow.
So 8-man sniper team. So I'd coordinate training and do all that stuff for our snipers. And I boloed the first time I went down to sniper school on the iron sights at 100 yards.
Oh, wow.
I had one round, and it was like right on the edge, but it had to be clearly in. So when I got out after that, I actually moved our sniper targets that we'd practice on from a 10-inch target to a 7-inch target.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, if you can qualify on the 7-inch target before we send you to school, you'll be fine on a 10-inch target. So the aim small, miss small.
That sounds so simple, but it's genius.
Yeah. Just,
simple.
Just shrinking the target down and making sure guys
said, if you train here on the 7, when you go there to get qualified or certified, you're boom, the 10 will be easy.
Yeah.
That's like I said, it sounds so simple, but that's actually genius.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. But so I was on SRT for most of my time in the military, and that's where I started teaching defensive tactics and all that stuff, and some firearms stuff while we're out there. And then when I came to the department, I actually got on SRT and went to FBI sniper school.
Hell yeah.
Prior to my first year probation being done, just from my qualifications from that. And that was fun. That was a good course. I was kind of pissed. They had a stalk was one of the exercises, and they took us out to this big, wooded field and stuff. And they're like, all right. And they gave you ever shot a pinwheel target where it's got all the different, it's got a bunch of different pinwheels on it, and you got the numbers underneath the pinwheel, and they'll give you and they're like, all right, we need you to identify whatever this number is. So I thought the objective was to get as close as possible. And so I looked at the layout and all that stuff, and I was like, well, if I jump this fence, I can fucking run, most of this way and move outside of their sight. And then I just literally just zigzagged. I mean, I got within like 30 yards of not just the instructors, but, as people were getting called out for getting seen, they're looking for you too. And I was able to get up in a tree, like a little grove of little pine trees, and get that target. And I was like, oh shit, I won. And some dude won that had like a 25 power scope, you know what I mean? Like he was in the tree line, zoomed in. Yeah. He was like, I got the number. So I was kind of pissed about that, but I did get closest.
Man, what, some people understand this question. Was there any moments, I mean, sometimes I know me, like you're heading to a hot call or a hot situation, and you're in your head like, man, this may be for real. Today may be the day. Today I may have to actually shoot somebody. when you get there. But was there ever any of them moments where maybe during it, or like a lot of times I experienced after the fact, you really were like, man, this is some really dangerous stuff. Like that could have went really bad.
I always acknowledged it, but what I loved about police work, or what I love about police work, and I'm still doing it, is you're just one call away from all hell breaking loose.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
And I mean, I love that part of it, and just knowing like the capabilities, not just your own capabilities, but having a team that you can rely on. I mean, I've been in some pretty serious shit, especially out of the federal task force. We were involved in several shootings out there, and the first op that I ran out there, that I was in charge of, it was my search warrant, and I knew that it was just a stash house. And I told the guys, I say, if there's no cars here, no one's going to be here. Well, that just happened to be where the deal that went down, that we had like 5 search warrants that we were going to hit off of that deal. And we followed that dude around for like 3 days. He was out collecting money and shit. He finally did it. And we ended up getting, as the team breached the front door, I was coming around and securing the back door, and I heard gunshots. Well, the target that was picking up the dope had ran. Our KC TAC chased him, and I heard the gunshots. I thought it was them shooting a couple houses over, until the back of the house started coming apart.
Oh God.
And I was like, oh, those fucking bullets are coming towards me, man. I better get the fuck out of here. But yeah, that was probably the time, one of the times where I was like, oh shit, that was close. For real. Yeah, that was close, because I'm just standing there, securing the back door, making sure the bad guy don't run out the back door. Next thing I know, bullets are coming at me. So
well, this is where I want to kind of dig in deep, man. 'Cause somebody's listening right now or watching, they're going to, hear everything we've talked about so far and be like, man, this guy had it figured out, man. Army veteran, 31 years, law enforcement, tactical operator, sniper, task force. But eventually, another side of that career came out. When did you first realize the job was starting to kind of take something from you?
So the first time I realized it was on a overdose call. And this kid, he's on the bed, he's dead. And, we're out there doing our thing. I, found the dope and his little kit there and all that stuff. And then mom shows up, and she's just obviously beside herself. Her son is dead. And in my head, I'm just like, come on, bitch, I got a fucking job to do.
Yeah.
Like, let's get this going. Like, he's dead. Move on.
Yeah.
Let me get this shit done. And like, the fact that her pain, witnessing her pain, didn't bother me, bothered me. I was like, man, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like we said, we just said earlier, to us, it was just another call.
Yeah.
We're going to clear this one and go to another one.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, maybe I got something going on. But then, I acknowledged it and was just trying to be more conscious of it. But then when I realized it really started taking a toll was after my daughter had some mental health stuff going on, and realizing through like family therapy and stuff like that a lot of it had to do with me wearing my armor. Even though I put my body armor up in my closet or in my locker when I left work, I was still wearing that armor home.
Mm-hmm.
And was totally disconnected from my family. We'd host Thanksgiving, we had Christmases and all that stuff. And, here's everybody that I love the most in this world is right in this room. I'm 100 miles away.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I was like, man, I got to get my shit together. And my wife is always like, she's like, you got PTSD, and I'm like, nah, whatever. You're full of shit. I ain't got that.
Ain't nothing wrong with me.
Yeah, because I wasn't, like, you think about like PTSD and, a lot of times it's associated with like, deployments and,
trauma,
shootings and all the trauma and stuff like that. And what people don't realize is like, even those little calls, you know what I mean?
They start adding up.
They start adding up, and we're pretty good about putting shit on box. I'm going to put this in a little box and set it on the shelf and it's good to go. Well, sooner or later that shelf's going to break. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You can only, there's a load. You
can only put it back there in the vault so many times for that vault bust open.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we were in family counseling and, like I said, my daughter's had several suicide attempts, and you're always trying to like it's like a mechanic, you got a check engine light comes on and you're like, man, what the fuck is going on? You
Yeah,
plug
trying to fix the problem.
Plug it in a little box and they're like, oh, well, here's the code for it. This is what's going on. And you're like, oh, I just got to add some oil to my car or change the air filter or whatever. And it's not that simple when it comes up here.
Mm-hmm.
And, it took a long time for that to come out, and my absence really kind of let her down even though I was still at home. You know what present. I mean? But yeah, but I just wasn't present. I wasn't engaged. And all that kind of started when our oldest son was kind of acting like a knucklehead, and he dropped out of school and was couch surfing, and just that's, kind of preoccupied my wife and my mother-in-law. And at the time, my daughter was in dance, and, that's all they could talk about. Everything was about what he was doing. And my daughter was like, I don't want to dance anymore because,
she's like, I don't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I made my opinions about what we should do. You know what I mean? Because they were just basically enabling him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, he needs money. He needs this. And, my in-laws let him stay at their house. And he had some people over while they were gone, and they stole a bunch of my father-in-law's guns. And, and I'm just like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, why are you guys fucking...
When are we cutting them off?
Yeah.
As much as you hate to say that.
And so basically I was told to fuck off and keep my opinion to myself. And that's kind of where I had started doing some woodworking on the side. A friend of mine opened a bar, and they were getting raked over the coals on these like saloon doors that they want to build.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, I could build that shit, and for way cheaper.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got into that and really kind of just dove into it and started. It was basically another full-time job. So I was getting up, 4:00, 5:00 in the morning, going to the shop, working, coming home, getting ready for work, working however long we needed to. And then I'd be back in the shop till 10, 11 o'clock at night.
It's like you said, you were home physically,
right?
But you weren't being present.
Yeah. I wasn't present at all. So, around that same time, our daughter had a tablet that she, just play games on and shit. And it broke, and it was cheaper to get her a new phone than it was to replace the tablet. And that's when all that shit kind of started, you know what I mean? Getting on social media.
Oh, yeah. Social media.
We were kind of talking about it before the podcast, and it is the devil. I guarantee
Kids,
you.
I've had some stuff as well with my daughter and social media, and some things happened, and like you said, I was home, but I wasn't at home. I was I was working this job, or I was gone for drill, or working another job, picking up overtime, going out of town for training.
Yeah, and when we're busy like that, we think like, oh, well, I was at your birthday party. You know what I mean? I was at Christmas. I took you to go to Disney on Ice or whatever. So I'm doing what I need to do.
Yeah. I'm home every night.
Yeah. I'm home every night, but yeah, you're just
there.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just there, and you're not engaging, and that's one of the biggest regrets that I have is, when you're in a relationship, and that's part of what I talk about in my program. When you're in a relationship, you guys are a team. And when one person's struggling, the other one needs to step up, and with my wife being preoccupied with my oldest son, I should have taken over and been like more present for the other three kids, my other two boys and my daughter. And, for me, in my own mental health, my own sanity, the garage was the safest place for me.
Yeah. That was like your retreat.
Well, that was my retreat, and that's what I had control over. You know what I mean? And where all my tools were. I knew where, you know what I mean? Like, this is what I can control, because everything else just kind of seemed like it was spiraling out of control.
That's what a lot of people don't realize, that, first responders, military, or anybody for that matter, a lot of times we're not the first people to realize something's wrong.
Yeah.
It's the ones closest to us. And also, we even though it's not intentional, we'll bleed onto them.
Yeah.
They're doing everything they can to help us, to be there for us. And I don't know, it's like, it just takes a while for us to realize, not only are we the problem, but what the problem actually is. So like a lot of times when it comes to PTSD and mental health stuff, it's, we're sometimes the last people to realize something's wrong, because the ones close to us are the ones that are already having to suffer through it.
Yeah. And acknowledging that, I actually just published a survey for veterans and first responders, so they can take the survey. And then there's a spouse survey about the veteran or first responder. And then they can kind of compare scores on the different areas and be like, oh shit, you see me a lot different than how I see myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Probably,
and there's a lot of times like, and it'll go two ways. Either the spouse will see you as rock solid. You know what I mean? When you see yourself as not rock solid, or vice versa. You know what I mean? You think you're killing it, and they're like, no, man, you're not killing
You're struggling.
it. Yeah,
We're struggling. We're falling to pieces here.
Yeah. So it's just a good conversation starter. So
what would you say was kind of the breaking point when you were like, all right, something's wrong. Something has to change. I need to get my shit together.
I think a lot of it had to do, like, during that whole time where, you know, the deal was happening with my daughter and I was doing woodworking and all that stuff. Me and my wife started having some serious marital problems, to the point where we were pretty close to being divorced. And, you know, I started going to, first therapist I went to he was no good. It was just through our EAP program. Wasn't really culturally competent in dealing with veterans or first responders, and honestly didn't help me out at all. And I was just like, man, fuck this.
What a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then after my daughter's second suicide attempt, she came out and just was not very pleasant. You know, the first time she went in, she was the oldest of the younger group, because, you know, they break them into age ranges and some of the inpatient facilities. And then the second time, she was the youngest of the older group and just picked up some pretty shitty character traits. And I was like, man, I should be happy my daughter's home, but she's being a fucking asshole. Yeah. You know what I mean? So then I went to see another therapist, and she was awesome. And that was through the EAP program too. So, you know, don't discount your EAP therapist, but yeah, she actually had me do a timeline of everything that's happened in my life, and that really kind of opened my eyes to, like, all right, I can see why I am where I'm at. You know what I mean? And so I started working on that, and then our insurance changed, so I couldn't see her anymore. And like I said, my wife and I were still having some serious marital issues, and you know, I accepted not making any excuse for any behavior, but I also accepted that I was not being the person that I should have been for her. You know what I mean? And so that's when I was like, all right, I need to make a change, and just started going through some stuff, talked to my new therapist, who was great. She actually is moving back to work with victims of, like, sex trafficking and stuff like that. So she's going back to the FBI. But yeah, Rachel is absolutely wonderful, and she recommended eTMS therapy, which is electromagnetic transcranial stimulation. It takes a commitment to do it, because it's like a 30-day deal. But man, I'll tell you what, you talk about us running redlining all the time. You know what I mean? And that's that first therapist I had, he goes, well, it's easier for you to jump to a 10 because you're operating at 8.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, this just dialed that idle down. So now I'm operating at idle speeds, and I've noticed, like, I still get pissed off about things, but I can stay on track, you know? And a lot of, you know, I'm sure you've done it too, where you're like, you get pissed off about something and you're like, oh, remember 2 months ago when you didn't bring the fucking trash cans back in? You know, like, I took them out and I was busy, and, you know, here it is 11 o'clock at night and I'm getting home and I got to fucking take the trash cans in. You know, you're just bouncing all over the place. Yeah. And that really kind of laid the baseline for me to be able to go in and really commit to therapy and kind of stay focused. And even my therapist, Rachel, she was like, holy shit. She's like, we're talking about stuff that would usually bother me. And she goes, I could see it in your face and on your body, like you tense up talking about this, and that's totally gone. So that was a huge game changer, you know. And for any of my, well, not just Missouri, but all over, eTMS is out there. And I will say there's a big difference between eTMS and TMS because eTMS goes off of an EEG. So they kind of figure out what your baseline and where you should be. And TMS is just a blanket, one size fits all.
Oh, God.
They just go in there and they're like, zapping you.
Yeah.
And
sounds scary.
Yeah. Well, eTMS works up to your target goal, so like for the first 2 weeks, they're just slowly increasing the intensity. So you're not getting the headaches and the brain fog and the irritability for it. So a lot of people have a bad, experience with TMS.
Just too much.
Because it's right out of the gate, man. They're just fucking hammering you.
One thing I like about what you just said, and I've told people that many times, is like, man, just because you go to counseling and you don't connect with that one counselor, it don't mean counseling is not for you.
Right.
You just find another counselor.
Yeah.
It's like, I've went through probably about 5 of them until I found the 3 or 4. Yeah. Until I found the one that I've connected with and been with for a couple of years, Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I went to a guy and, like I said, we just didn't really connect. He didn't have any real background in first responders or military, and got an older lady. I mean, she was real nice, but again, we just didn't connect. She felt like I was talking to my grandma.
Right.
And then another lady, she was super sweet and super helpful, but again, just the connection wasn't really truly there for me to, fully open up. And then I met Melissa, and I don't know what it was. It was just like we just clicked right away. And after we got comfortable with each other, she would just flat out tell me like, "Now, Drew, do you think that was a good decision?" Like, we'll come on now. Like,
right.
She would actually like tell me what it is instead of, some of them are, they just want to sit there and listen. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I need some feedback.
Yeah.
I need to be like a conversation piece. Like,
yeah, feedback, and your counselor should challenge you. Bottom line, your counselor should be like, "Hey, what you're doing right here obviously isn't working. So let's try something different."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And yeah, and like you said, man, it's 100% okay if you two are speaking 2 different languages to be like, you're fired.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And go find somebody else. And that's what, so I just did the Battle Within earlier this year, the Revenant Journey, and their network that they hook veterans and first responders up with. They're all vetted, culturally competent therapists. So, and it's across the country. So if you're looking for a therapist and you're a veteran or first responder out there and you want to make sure that you're getting somebody that is certified and has been vetted to deal with veterans and first responders specifically, shoot me a message or shoot the Battle Within a message, and they'll get you hooked up with somebody, and they'll actually pay for the first 6.
Oh, wow.
Therapy appointments, and then on a case-by-case basis, they may extend that out depending on where you're at.
Who was that again?
The Battle Within out of Kansas City. And
they're online?
Yep. And the Revenant Journey, it was a week-long, basically like a cohort session. So I was in there with like 10 or 11 other guys. And I'll tell you what, man, that was the first time I've done group therapy type stuff. And the second day was a real kick in the ass because you're literally sitting around in a circle. You know what I mean? And a lot of times we feel like we're the only ones.
Yeah.
We got all these fucking problems, this cloud flowing over our head, and you're sitting around in this circle and you're like, "Oh shit, I'm dealing with that too."
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm going through that." You know what I mean? And then by the time you guys get done and everyone telling their story, we're all like, and we're all on the same page. We're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Grab a oar. Let's paddle this. Let's steer this bitch in the right direction.
That's what I actually just spoke something similar to that on my last episode of the podcast. I said, man, you're not alone. I can promise you, you're not alone. Whatever you're going through, first responder, military, anybody out there, I'm like, whatever you're going through, I promise you, people you even know personally have probably been through it and just haven't talked about it. I'm like, so you're not alone, and it's perfectly okay to not be okay.
Yep.
Especially us, like I said in that same episode, I was like, big, rough, tough first responders, we're the ones that are, we're there to help you. So it's hard and weird for us to ask for help. It feels like we're a failure. We're weak.
Yeah. And that is hard. You know what I mean? And it's hard to admit to your family that you need help.
Yeah.
Because you're the one they always lean on.
You're the leader.
You're the one that they're like, "I don't know, Dad will figure it out."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? "Hey, we got to pay for this." But like, fuck, I don't know how the fuck I'm going to do it, but I'll get it figured out.
Like a typical man, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And so it's hard to be like, "Hey, I need some help here."
Yeah.
you know.
Like, by the way, I'm drowning.
But I'll tell you what, for all the brave shit that we do, you know what I mean? Having bullets flying out the back of the house, you know, kicking indoors, car
fights.
chases, all that stuff. That's probably the bravest thing you can do.
Yeah, and probably the hardest.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you know, I don't know what the textbook definition of bravery is, but it's action in the presence of fear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're afraid to start opening those boxes.
Yeah, to admit.
Because you know what's in them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you're like, hey, I got to do this.
But man, we did a lot of talk about the mental aspect and getting help. But tell me more about interesting, because I went through my own health journey from November to about a couple months ago. I've been slacking, but I lost right at 50 pounds and got in some of the best shape of my life. How and what did it take for you to lose that 90 pounds and be the man that you are today? Because that's not just a simple diet or a simple workout routine.
No, it's an entire life change. And, you know, I talk about in a lot of my videos about motivation wanes.
It comes and goes.
Yeah. You're like, man, I'm really motivated. Well, what happens when you wake up and you're not motivated?
Yeah.
What replaces that? It's discipline. It's discipline to eat the right shit. You know what I mean? Like once you figure out what works for you and where you can be at and not, you know, start gaining weight or, you know, what it takes to drop 2 or 3 pounds a month. That's what it is. But really for me, and I'm glad we brought that up, is I've always been able to be pretty disciplined on a diet. And like, I don't know, years and years ago, I started eating meat and vegetables and I dropped like 20 pounds in like a week and a half on doing that. And when I was like, all right, I needed, because I was up over 320 pounds, man.
What was your heaviest?
Like 321. Yeah. And I was like, I got to fucking do something. And so I started doing that meat and vegetable diet and it just was not working. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I talked to my doctor about it and got my T levels checked and they were like 190.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, he's like, well, there's your problem right there.
Yeah.
And once I started doing that, getting on TRT, that was a huge thing. And, you know, there's studies out there where veterans and first responders, because of repeated exposure to traumatic events, you know, that increases your cortisol levels, which disrupts your sleep, suppresses testosterone production, you know, makes you crave, you know, sweets, booze, junk food, shit like that. And it's just a big cycle right there. So once I got that fixed, then I was able to start dropping weight and it came off.
I'm glad you brought that up, man. I'm a very big advocate for when I came home from deployment in 2019. I was only 30 years old and I knew something. I was like, man, I don't have no energy no more. I have no drive. I know I need to get back in the gym. Like, I know I need to be taking better care of myself, man. I just don't have the energy. I don't have the drive. And a very good buddy of mine, he knew something also was wrong. And he went to the Starkville urology, to a urologist. And that same thing, man, his testosterone level was in the hundreds, like low 100s. And they told him his estrogen was high as a cheerleading squad.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So he was all out of whack. So I was like, man, if me and you experiencing the exact same thing, let me go get checked out. And I was the same way, man. I think I was down in like the 200s. My estrogen wasn't really high, but it was a little bit higher than what they wanted it to be. And I was only 30. And I tell guys that every day. I said, man, all the time I'm a big advocate about it. You know, some men are embarrassed to talk about it. I said, man, it was the best thing ever happened to me. I said, I was like, now at a bare minimum, everybody, women included as well, because they're also missed a lot of times when it comes to the hormone conversation. But I would say at a minimum, if you're 30 or above, at a bare minimum, twice a year, you need full blood work.
Yep.
I said, I don't care your diet, your exercise routine, even your lifestyle. If your hormones aren't in check, then you're not firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. And
people don't realize that's the last thing especially big men. Ain't no wrong with me. Ain't no wrong with my testosterone. I'm like, it's free to get checked, brother. Why not? I mean, why not?
Yeah. And look at your levels too, because your doctor will check them and like what they say the standard is.
Yeah. The standard range.
They're like, oh, you're in range. That's bullshit, man. You should be.
My doctor always wants you somewhere somewhere 800 to 1,000.
Yeah. I was going to say
about the 1,000 range, give or take.
Yeah. High 800s to 1,000 is where you should be. So if you're
at the bottom of the level, at 500 and they're saying you're good, you need a new doctor.
Yeah. Oh,
because I've seen that all the time.
100%.
Guys message me, man, hey, what I need to tell my doctor, what I need to do. And then they'll go get checked and be 400 or 500. And I said, man, my doctor said I'm perfectly fine. I said, you need a new doctor. And I said, a lot of times also they go to their general doctor.
Right.
You need to go to an actual urologist or an actual one of these testosterone specific clinics. This is all they do. Because a general doctor is just going to look at that general guideline. Oh, you're within range, man.
Yeah. Well, I actually hooked up with, do you see Mel Chancey, or do you know who Mel Chancey is? He's a former president of the Hells Angels. He was on the Sean Ryan show. And,
if I see his face, I bet I would.
You wouldn't miss him.
Yeah. If I see his face, I'll know who he is.
Yeah. But so after the Sean Ryan show, I messaged him. I'm like, hey, man, that was one of the most powerful episodes I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like, brought me closer to God. And I talk to him all the time. And but he's like, hey, anyone that you send to me, because he runs a clinic just for that. He's like, anyone you send to me, I'll give him $200 off off their blood work. So
what's his website?
You're going to ask me that, and I don't even know.
We will have it added.
Yeah.
By the time this is posted, the link will be there.
Yeah. But you can always message me, and I've got his cell phone number. So, but yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. He's a hell of a guy too, man. He's one of those guys that, lived on the opposite side of the law and,
definitely
really lived his life against God and completely changed everything around, man. I listen to his devotionals. He does one every morning, and that's when I've added that to my list of things
that's awesome
to watch. So
all right. So we've talked about the mental health aspect, how you worked on that, the physical aspect. You made an unbelievable change. Like I said, I lost I think I was 298. I got down to 248. So I lost 50 pounds, and I was super strict, meal prep, working out, blah, blah, blah. But what did you do to fix things at home?
To fix things at home was just through the therapy and stuff like that, is realizing, like, man, I got to be more present. You know what I mean? And, we talk a lot about in therapy and group session, we talk about mindfulness, and a lot of people have that backwards, and they think it's being mindful of someone else's feelings. It's being mindful of yourself and being like, man, I'm starting to get amped up here. I'm starting to feel a little bit anxious. What the hell's going on with me? And, like, personally, I use journaling to kind of get through, to kind of peel back, like, okay, you're feeling like this. What's happening?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just, for me, it's kind of like writing an ops plan. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, here's a problem. I'm like, all right. I could just kind of write it down. You know what I mean? And I'm like, all right, here's what's going on.
I love that you brought that up, because journaling was a severe help for me this year alone, coming from last year, divorce and all that, and losing everything. And I made a video about it. I said, man, as simple as it sounds, I said, just having pen and putting your thoughts on paper and getting them out of your head. I said, you'd be blown away at how much that helps.
Well, look at what's one of the laws of energy. It can't be created or destroyed, right?
Exactly.
You can just transfer it. So that physical transfer of just writing something down on paper, that's a physical transfer of that energy to something else. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's a part of it too, is you're actually physically doing something. And it's real easy to swim around in your head and not stay on track. You know what I mean? And that's what journaling does for me, is it helps me kind of dissect what's going on. You know what I mean? And then there's times like in being mindful, like you got a hard day at work and you come home and the kids are running around and wife's cooking dinner or doing whatever, you know what I mean? You being mindful of, like, hey, I just had a fucking really shitty day, and like not too long ago, I went home and I was like, hey, I'm going to take 15 minutes and I'm going to go hermit. And I just went in, meditated, did some did some breathing techniques. And then I was able to come out and be present at home. Yeah. Because if I'd have just jumped right into it, I'd have been irritable and an asshole, you know what I mean, for the rest of the night. Because you never decompress from that.
What would you say to a spouse or a girlfriend of a veteran or a first responder out there right now that your story resonates and they're seeing a lot of that with the person they're with, male or female, whoever it is? What advice would you give them?
I would say you have to be supportive. And if you come at a veteran or first responder and be like, hey, you need to go to counseling, you're going to fucking run into a brick wall. Yeah. They're going to be like, fuck you.
Yeah. Don't be like, you need help.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go into them and say, hey, you need help, if you come at it more kind of as a helping or understanding, and be like, hey, you seem like you've been really stressed out lately. Is there anything that I can do to kind of take some stuff off your plate, to help you out? And then that kind of opens the door, because now instead of coming at them like, hey, you're fucked up, you're like, what can I do to help you?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That kind of lowers the armor there, and being like, shit, you find some videos, you know what I mean? Be like, hey, I think you'd really like this guy, you know what I mean? And it's something, like I talk about mental health and stuff all the time. I do have a lot of police critiques on videos and stuff too, but I talk about mental health all the time, find somebody like that that's like, hey,
check this guy out.
Yeah, check this guy out, you know what I mean? And he'd be like looking in a mirror, it's like, oh shit, am I doing that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I said, that's part of that survey thing too, is to kind of open the door for that, is so you can, it's a 5-section survey, and really you get your score at the end of it, and it's like the areas that you're kind of failing at and how they see you as well. Mm-hmm. So it's
an eye opener for sure.
Oh yeah. That's a good conversation starter. You know what I mean? And you can be like, okay, I see that you see me different in this area than I see myself. You know what I mean? What can we do to fix that? Because in the end, whether you're at work or you're at home, how do we work?
Yeah.
In teams. You know what I mean?
How do we make this work?
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, man, Bob really sucks at doing this, but he's awesome at doing this. So we're just going to have him do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can do that stuff with, you find your strengths, not just at work and your partner strengths or your crew strengths, but you also find that at home in your own circle. And you're like, all right, what do we need to do to make this operation a success?
Man, that leads us perfectly into, say that, a spouse somewhere or the first responder veteran himself is going through some stuff, and they come across you on social media, and so they relate to some of this stuff. Tell us more about your coaching program.
So I actually developed this coaching program after speaking to my coach, Justin Wenzel, came across him, and really the video that got me to message him was he's like, man, this world doesn't need more influencers. It needs more healed men.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
On Instagram.
Yeah. And I was like, man, that fucking really hit me, because I'm like, and I reached out to him basically to promote my book, figure out, the social media game and doing all that shit, and just talking to him and learning what he does and all that stuff. He's like, it's like, man, you got a really good story that can help a lot of people out. And that's kind of where my coaching program came from. And, there's a physical fitness and a nutrition aspect of my program, but most of it is around rebuilding that connection with your family. There's a, nightly protocol to put your phones up. There's a weekly cohort, Zoom session where we talk about different things like hypervigilance and, being able to drop the armor at home. You know what I mean? Like you said before, like connecting with people outside of the military and law enforcement, where you're like, man, take inventory of your friends, and right now, and I'm working on it, but I have 2 civilian friends.
Yeah. I remember at one point in time, I literally would only talk to and would only hang out with fellow cops.
Yeah. And a lot of that, I think for me personally, especially going out somewhere, it helped my hypervigilance, because I know, like, when I'm out with my family, I'm the single point of failure and I'm scanning everything. Yeah. But if you're out with a group of cops, now my sector is like this.
Yeah.
Because I know this guy's watching his sector and this guy's watching his sector. So now you can
fully relax almost.
Yeah. So now we got a good perimeter set up, and you can relax a little bit. Because I know, if I'm talking to you and I'm watching over here, you got the same thing on my 6. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of that has to do with that. And since we're talking about hypervigilance, just I'm actually working on a script, and I got to find a location. I got a videographer that's going to do it, but I want to shoot a video, like a PSA on hypervigilance and how it presents, to your family, because like you're out, let's just say you're out at the mall, you know what I mean? Now it's a lot of people out there, so you're already on edge. The wife's showing you a purse that she wants, you know what I mean? And you're like, oh yeah, that's real nice. And the kids are running around. They're like, oh, daddy, look at this. Oh, that's nice. You know what I mean? And you're just not there, So to them, you could give a shit less about being there with them.
Yeah.
Right. But
you're
then
you're not paying attention.
Yeah. You're not paying attention. You're just like, oh, fuck, I got to go to the fucking mall with these kids. You know what I mean? But then I want to shoot it from the veterans or the first responders perspective and be like, that guy's got a bulge underneath his shirt. That guy's doing, you know what I mean? That guy's doing something shady over there, and just kind of focus on, just show the two different worlds of that. Because I think a lot of times as veterans and first responders, we don't understand how that presents itself to our families.
Very true. Like you said, you're like, I'm here, I'm with you. What do you mean? And they're like, man, it's like you weren't even here or paying attention, or you don't even want to be here.
Yeah. And 3 months later, you're going to ask your wife, man, what do you want for your birthday or for Valentine, or for Christmas or whatever? She's like, oh, remember that purse I showed you at the mall? Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah, I remember. No, you don't fucking remember because you weren't even looking at it.
Well, you mentioned it before. Why don't you tell us about your book?
So I've written 2 books. The first one, like I told you at the house, was it's kind of on accident. My mom wrote all these like real small books for the kids, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, I'd like to write one for her. And so my grandpa was a woodworker, did carvings and stuff like that. And he carved this gnome, it was about that tall, and had a bunch of gnome books and stuff like that. And I was like, he took over that cabin that my mom had actually ended up inheriting, but did a bunch of work to it and stuff like that. So I just kind of took that whole setting and made it just a children's book where this gnome was actually friends with my grandpa, and then became friends with my mom, saved my mom and my daughter from a bear while they're walking through the woods and shit like that. So I just, I wrote like the first chapter, and I was like, man, I kind of like that. And I just kept going and wrote a whole book about it. But my second one, Murderous Daydreams, not even close to that. It's a psychological thriller. Basically the main character has basically like a psychic connection with this serial killer. So she's seeing these murderers, and she just thinks she's having these daydreams.
Oh, wow.
And she's writing about them in a blog or whatever, like a writer's blog. And the murderer is actually a G-man, cybersecurity expert, black budget guy that works for the government. And so he basically backdoors companies so the government can steal tech and surveil them.
Dang.
And so he uses his expertise in that to basically commit these murders. And I use my expertise as an investigator to build a perfect murder. Because if it wasn't for the psychic connection with the other chick, there ain't nobody that would ever know that those murders were actual murders. Every single one of them, every seasoned investigator out there would be like, oh, this was an accident. This was a suicide. One of the guys, like, he's out doing his thing, and he sees him dumping paint or oil in a storm drain, and he's like, this motherfucker's got to go. And so he clones his phone, tracks him. He sets up a bullshit investment company and they're propositioning the city to buy this area, but they're like, well, we're not going to buy it if all these houses look like shit. So they start stroking the guy with codes violations because his grass is up and there's trash on his porch and all that stuff. And he's on dating apps, basically talking to himself, and he sets up this date with this chick, and he knows that he goes to this bar every day. And he's like, man, I was at the bar and you weren't there. And she's like, yeah, I saw you, but you're much uglier in person. So I just fucking left. And the killer was actually in his house. took the guy's own medication, put it in his booze at the house. So the guy takes it and falls out. He chloroforms him just to make sure that he was done, and then cuts the guy's wrist and leaves him there, but leaves the phone unlocked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He opens all the, like a bunch of different things, cat food, because the guy's got a cat.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, and there's no other signs, you know what I mean? You're like, oh man, this guy's got all a stack of tickets from the city.
Yeah.
You know, his house is a wreck. He was supposed to hook up with this chick, and she told him she was ugly.
Yeah.
So, anyone going into that scene, you'd be like, oh yeah, he opened all the cat food so his cats wouldn't starve, until somebody called on him, and, he's just there.
Yeah.
And that's how the main character finds out is there's a detective out on a scene, totally unrelated, and she overhears two patrolmen talking about that murder. Well, she worked it.
Oh, wow.
She got called out on that suicide. She's like, what are you guys talking about? And that's how it kind of unfolds from there.
Dude.
But because the guy's a cybersecurity expert and has all this
secret clearance
and all that stuff, so he has access to all these like black budget programs. So when he finally gets outed as a serial killer, nobody knows who he is. They just know there's a serial killer out there. He basically dumps this trove of classified documents on like MK Ultra, Operation Mockingbird, the Epstein files, all that stuff is all pushed out there, and he pushes out to independent investigators, not mainstream media.
Yeah,
because like they're showing like these pictures of like CIA, agents or affiliates, and they're like the news is like reading it, and this picture pops up, and they're like, "Who's our producer?" So they're like, "Oh shit."
Yeah. Well, I know I can't wait to read it. What would you say, man, from where you first started in the military, first started as a policeman, everything you've been through, what do you think the biggest changes are that you've been through, like from who you were then to who you are right now?
I will definitely say that I am not so much of a hard ass, and that I fully embrace, and we kind of missed the follow-up question earlier about the changes in police work and stuff like that. And I'm glad to see that change to addressing mental health is out there, because, when I first started and as I came up through the ranks, seeking help was weakness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now that's probably the biggest thing is like, I'm like, fucking get in to see somebody. You know what I mean? And do it early.
Sooner the better.
Yeah, do it early. You know what I mean? Because if you can take some of those boxes off the shelves, you know what I mean? The load on that shelf isn't as much, man. So even if you're only going in, every 6 months or something like that, I'd say if you've been on the road for 3, maybe 5 years, you know what I mean? It's time to go to seek some help and get out there,
Especially depending on what department you work at.
Yeah. And if you've been involved in any critical incidents, shootings or anything like that, that's definitely the way to go.
For sure. That's what I was told when I first started. About 5-year mark is about the time you'll have seen just about everything you're going to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And some guys get exposed to it way early.
Yeah. Depending on the call volume, bigger cities,
right.
I think where they work at. I mean, you work at Memphis PD, you're going to have a lot more experience in 1 year compared to working somewhere in rural Mississippi.
Right.
Just the call volume and the type of calls you're going to alone is going to open your eyes up depending on where you work.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. And that's one of the things that it really kind of stuck with me. And I did some EMDR therapy with that second therapist, and I had a smothered baby call that really fucked me up. And I didn't even realize it until I did EMDR therapy. And, mom hands me this non-breathing baby infant, and they had rolled over on him in the middle of the night. And, he had a little bit of blood coming out of his nose and his mouth just from the capillaries breaking. And, I'm giving this kid CPR and then hand him off to the medics. And it wasn't until I did EMDR therapy that I actually saw that kid's face again, and he looked just like my son when he was born. And I was like,
God,
man, no wonder that kind of fucked me up for a while. So
yeah, that's tough. Even hearing about it.
Yeah. That was because obviously that was the first thing in the, right out of the gate call early in the morning, and I had to go back to the station, wash that kid's blood off my face. And I remember later on that day, some lady called us because her house got egged. And I'm like, fuck you, bitch. I'm like, get a hose, wash that shit off, and, go about your day.
What I want to say, say somebody's watching or listening right now, and they're who you are, who you used to be, who I used to be, man. They're a cop or firefighter, a veteran. They're, everybody thinks they're fine. They go to work, they handle all the responsibilities, they make jokes, they take care of everybody else. But when they're alone and it's quiet, they actually do realize they're not okay. What would you say to that person right now directly?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, brother, you are not alone, or sister, you are not alone. And there are guys like us out there that you can reach out to, that know resources to get you some help. Like I said, the Battle Within is an excellent program. You can message me anytime. I'll give, especially if you're going through some shit and you're on the verge, or thinking about, suicide or something like that. I'll give you my cell phone number and you can call me day or night. But yeah, you're definitely not alone, and we can get you some resources to get you some help.
That is the main thing right there. Like, it's okay to not be okay, and you're not alone, no matter how alone you may feel.
Yeah. And I've been doing this for 31 years, and there's not a whole lot that I haven't been through. You know what I mean? Been through IAs, been through, this is my third marriage, so I've been through divorces, been through financial struggles, been through all the wins, and been through all the real lows.
The highest highs and the lowest lows.
Yeah. My time at the task force was really successful, and, I pride myself. I got over 1,000 years of prison time that I accumulated over the cases I worked, without one case going to trial, which is pretty awesome, to make sure my stuff's buttoned up. But, at the end of the day, that book of awards and, and all those stats and shit ain't going to mean a dick when you're dead and gone. What's going to matter is, the family trip I took to Branson last weekend, or, the vacations that we went on, when you're present with your family, you know what I mean? And the things that you did together, that's what they're going to remember. They're not going to give a shit about.
Oh, my dad was a great cop.
Yeah. I got a stack of ribbons like this, and, none of that shit's going to mean dick when you're gone. And, that's my goal is to get guys back to their families, and not just back to their families, but back to themselves.
Exactly.
Because, when I was 320 pounds, man, I wouldn't even look in the mirror. I'd look in the mirror long enough to shave, and that was it.
Exactly.
Because I was like, you are a fucking disgusting piece of shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And words mean things.
Yeah.
So when you say that to yourself,
and
it just makes it worse.
And I will say, you can go to the gym, lose the weight, and build the body back. But if you don't work on this too, and you don't like what's up here, it doesn't mean dick. You know what I mean? And vice versa. You can go to therapy and you can get this all straightened out, but if you don't like what you see in the mirror, it don't mean dick.
Exactly.
Because it's all one thing, man. You know what I mean? Like, your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health is all one. It's one thing.
Very true. Like I was saying earlier, like, it doesn't matter your diet or your fitness, or, man, it like, even, get your hormones checked out, man. You may be great, which is great news, but now, if you go for your first checkup and they say, yeah, all your levels look good. Well, if you come back in 6 months for your second checkup, your biannual checkup, now all of a sudden your levels are jacked. They know now they can narrow it down. What happened? When did it happen? And so once you get that in check, like I said, the diet, the exercise, the mental health, the hormonal health, it's like you said, it's all in one. You can't go all out on one or two aspects and completely forget about this aspect, or you're never going to be truly optimal.
Yeah. I mean, think about, like, you go buy a project car, you know what I mean? And, you can put a brand new engine in it, but everything else looks like shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that part might run fine, but you don't want to take it out of the garage.
Yeah.
Or you could paint it and do all the body work to it, and the engine run like shit and the brake lines be all fucked up.
Yeah.
It's still, it's still not an operational machine. So it's, that's how I look at all of that. You know what I mean? And, when I say spiritual health, whether it's God, whether it's just a higher power, and I'm Native American, so I read the Bible pretty religiously, and follow that. And I think it's a great book to live your life by, you know what I mean? But, I also still am a heathen at heart. So I pray to different gods from different things.
Spiritual means different things to different people.
Yeah, but just being spiritual and realizing, man, this whole thing is not an accident. My wife and I just went to the zoo over in Memphis, and I'm looking at these animals, man, and I'm like, there ain't no way that happened by accident.
Exactly. That animal happened to be at this particular place. Like what
just the different colors, you know what I mean? And just the beauty of it all, you know what I mean? And just how we work, like plants give us the air we breathe. And when we die, we go back into the ground and feed those same plants. You know what I mean? Like it's a symbiotic relationship. And that's kind of how you got to look at your own body. You know what I mean? Like your physical health, your mental health, and your spiritual health are all one thing. So if one thing's off, it's not going to run right.
Exactly. Well, if anybody's interested in this episode and wants to get in touch with you, what are your social media handles, and do you have a website?
So it's Orion Bad Karma Mata on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And then my coaching website is www.badkarmacoaching.com.
And of course, this will all be posted on the episode as well for the links and stuff. Is there anything you'd like to say that maybe we didn't cover, or something to close us out?
No, I just, I really appreciate the opportunity. And like I said, if you're a veteran or first responder out there and you want to make a change and realize that you need to change, no better time than right now. No better time than today. Don't wait till, next Monday I'm going to do it. Because that's the motivation that's going to wane. So, if you can be disciplined at work, if you can be disciplined in other parts of your life, then you can be disciplined with your own physical and mental health.
That's why conversations like this matter, because strength isn't just being able to perform when everything around you is falling apart. Sometimes strength is finally being willing to admit that something inside you needs attention too. Like you've heard me say today, like you've heard me say before, it's okay to not be okay, and you're not alone. Drew Jones, the Veteran Podcast. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you on the next episode.